Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Szafranski, your host. I'm looking for new chairs for the podcast. I want something a little bit big. I love the purple, but you really can't see it unless I go like this, and I don't want to do that. So I'm looking for new chairs. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I'd like something dark leather tall with a good back on it so I can kind of slouch into it and be slouchy. You can hear me every Thursday morning, 8 o'clock. On WCRF 103.3 in Cleveland. They have an app, Moody Radio App. They did an AI song for me this morning. It's really good. I think I'm going to play it on the next podcast because I got so much I want to talk about this time. I'm up against a schedule. I want to let you know you could email questions to Corey, Kory, at epsf.com, running down the bottom here, nativos.usa, nativosusa.org if you want to know about the mission trips. We're going in March of next year, and you can go and you can support it. Every little bit helps. We have a limited amount of space, so if you want to go, you got to let me know now. This week is a big week economically. We have the Democratic National Convention, which is basically an exercise in communism, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because of one of the proposals that they made is a classic communist trick. We've tried it here before, actually under a Republican president, and it didn't work. It was an abysmal failure. But even more important than that is Jackson Hole is happening. Jackson Hole is a symposium of Federal Reserve Bank presidents, the Federal Reserve Board, and guess who's there? Chair Powell is there. And in Chair Powell this time is going to talk about cutting rates a quarter point. Cutting rates a quarter point. That's what he's going to do. That's what they're going to start. They're going to start the rate cut regime in September, and that's going to happen. Also, the Fed came out and announced that the jobs report that the administration puts out for the last year has been wrong. They've overstated jobs by 818,000 jobs. So almost 1 million jobs that they said were there, never there. Dust in the wind. Some people would call that a miscalculation. I like to call it a lie. It's a lie. The administration lied. So what is Comrade Kamala Harris proposing now? She did a 12-minute speech, by the way. It's all she's spoken, really, 12 minutes. And in that 12-minute speech, she laid bare some of her economic ideas. And one of them is price controls. She's sick of inflation. So instead of fixing inflation, which she caused, they're going to do price controls. We first did price controls in the United States April 15th, 1971. President Nixon instituted wage and price controls, and you can only raise wages and prices through a price control board, government appointed. Abysmal failure. It really caused a lot of problems that we're going to talk about here. And what I did is I looked at some research. And I'm just looking at my piece of paper here. Robert Sterling is really responsible for this research, but I felt it was so compelling. And I thought, I need to share this because this is really what happens when you say, by the way, you can't raise prices and you pick a particular product, a subject, a good, a service. These are the things that happen. So the first thing that happens is the government announces grocery stores cannot raise prices. You know, grocery stores, that's number one. Number two, grocery stores really survive on about 1% to 2% margins. And suppliers can raise prices against them. So the government will come out and also tell the suppliers, like ConAgra and the big corn guys and the big food producers like Goya beans, for instance, they will come out and tell them, you can't raise prices either. So all of a sudden, everybody's locked into what they can charge unless the government allows it to go up. They do this now somewhat with utilities. So your electric bill is price controlled. And the reason for that is because in many places you have one electric supplier. There's an oligopoly in the electric market, so it's heavily regulated, and they can only raise prices through a government board. But grocery stores aren't like that. There's grocery stores everywhere. There's a high level of competition. So the number three thing that happens is because not all stores are created equally, the ones in the low rent district, they're going to go out of business first. They have practically no margin. Even though they're expensive, it's because they have no buying power. They can't really leverage their weight like a Walmart can. So they're going to go out of business first, and you get food deserts almost immediately. The fourth thing, meanwhile, margins are compressing because labor costs go up, energy prices go up, ingredients aren't fixed, the ingredient prices aren't fixed. Your price is fixed, but all those inputs are not fixed. So if fuel changes and it raises the price of getting the stuff to the store, all of a sudden you're not making money. So the big chains will stop carrying the fixed priced items, and they'll start to look more like Walmarts. They'll carry things that aren't fixed priced. So the fixed price things are going to be really hard to get. It's like in the pandemic when you couldn't get bullets, for instance. They would unload a truckload of bullets at Cabela's, they'd be gone by noon because people would be waiting for that truck to show up. And that's what's going to happen with groceries. 6, producers stop making the lowest margin products and they start competing in other areas like payment terms. They'll allow you to, it's almost like food layaway. That's what's going to happen. And then there's consolidation. Number 7, consolidation outright. And what happens is that decreases competition because the big chains, even the big chains, if you're a smaller chain, you can't compete with Walmart, Heinen's, Get-Go, places like that. Or go out of business. Small food producers go out of business because they usually don't sell direct to stores. They sell through certain arrangements with larger companies who then sell to the stores. Well, they're not going to be able to keep their profit margins up. You'll see supply lines break down and food lines start to form. And what happens is, if you look at like a Venezuela, and we always like you got to go to hyperbole to make your point with these things, but this is not hyperbole. This is what Venezuela does right now. They have armed guards at grocery stores. We're used to armed guards at banks, and if you've ever been to a marijuana dispensary, I've seen one, I've never been in one, they have armed guards. They're carrying AR-15s around. So you'll have armed guards at grocery stores. The Fed will announce block grants to states to take over the shuttered grocery stores because people are in food deserts. And as prices continue to get out of control around the price fix, all price of food will get fixed. The food supply will probably implode and food lines, and eventually you have like a communist dictatorship running the grocery stores. The food supply chain is more complicated than the military. And we've seen what the government does with complication. They're not good at nuance. They're good at things like roads and bridges, kind of. But when it comes to the nuance of a food supply chain, of actually implementing capitalism, they're horrible at it. And what will happen is eventually we will be waiting in line for food. Inflation will spin out of control. And what happened in the 1970s when Richard Nixon did this is they implemented fixed prices, the price controls on food and gas, and we ran into the energy embargo. And that raised everybody's costs. So they took off the price controls, and food shot up in price because everybody thought, well, they're probably going to do it again, so we got to get our price rises in now. And that's exactly what they did. And if Harris gets elected, you're going to see price go up on food another 15-20% because before that gets instituted, they're going to have to get a price hike in there because everything else is going to go up in cost. So they'll front run price controls. You will be paying. Inflation will spin out of control even more than what it is now. And a lot of people say, well, hey, if inflation's out of control, why is the Fed going to lower rates? Well, the price hikes that we have, the 25% more that we're paying at the grocery store, that's not going anywhere. It's just the rate of increase is lowering now. It's closer to the 2% guideline that the Fed has, but those prices aren't going back down. Now, if you get a Trump administration and they open up the spigots for oil and gas, you could see some of those prices come down slightly, but they're not coming down 25%. This is here to stay. So the only thing we can do now is find a way to get our incomes up over time that far outpace inflation. So higher wages, lower inflation growth, that means that you have more money to spend. We have 4 years of catch-up to do. So since the Biden administration got into power, prices are up 25% over those last 4 years. And mainly it happened in really 3 years. So we're going to have to go 3, 4, 5, 6 years of higher wages, higher than inflation, to even out where we're at. And price controls are the worst thing that you could do. But it was funny because as I was watching, I can't really watch the DNC. It's just too painful. These people are not very smart people. Economically, they're morons. And this just proves the fact that for 12 minutes she spoke. CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, all lambasted her economic plans, and she's not backing off of them. And her vice presidential choice, I really think she should have picked the governor of Pennsylvania. It would have served her very well. But she picked a person who's even more liberal than she is. That's why they're calling her Comrade Kamala, because these are all communist ideas that she's proposing right now. She also wants to do a mandatory gun buyback. Now, whenever you do something mandatory, it's a confiscation. They're going to buy back your guns with your money. What a deal. There's 500 million guns out there in the hands of civilians. They're never going to be able to do this. It's not going to happen, but they're going to try. We're going to be fighting for our Second Amendment rights till the day we die, or they're out of power forever. And I don't see them being out of power forever because power is cyclical. So on the economic side, we're in trouble if she gets elected. We're in all kinds of trouble. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think that they have till Labor Day for the shine to wear off on this duo of communists. Then she's going to either have to talk or be interviewed or give us her plans. And if there are more of these, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. What he's going to have to do when he gets elected is get this economy rolling. He's going to have a complimentary Fed because they're going to be lowering rates into it. If he plays his cards right, if he gets oil and gas moving, if he gets out of the way of business, if he cuts regulation and he has the right people, in his first term, the whole first year was wasted with rhinos. If he gets the right people, it's game on. You've got to be in equities. As they cut rates, I want you to look at real estate investments, not necessarily individual houses, but ETFs around real estate. Not corporate, but individual houses, apartment buildings, things like that. They will do well because rates are coming down. Again, if you have any questions, if you want to email us a question, I want you to do that. Corey@EPSF.com. I am David Szafranski, a real American, a true red-blooded patriot, and the voice you can trust.